Hello, hello, hello. Moving my mic a little bit. I totally forgot about my mic the last second. Hello, Julia. Good to see you. Okay, so yeah, I totally almost forgot my mic. Like I was sitting here, I was all ready for the countdown to finish, and then I was like, wait a minute, my mic. I don't leave my mic here. I have it down there, and I almost fell out of my chair trying to grab it. Oh my goodness. Hello. Hello, fellow witches and wizards. My name is PhoenixGinny, and welcome to the stream. Welcome to Storytime Saturday, even though, yeah, no, it's not Saturday. Not for you, anyway. It's Saturday for me, technically. Because my work schedule is different every week, I kind of pick a day to be my Friday and Saturday during the week. It would take a lot to explain it. Yeah, I'm live streaming today, and I'm reading more Harry Potter. Finally. It's been a super long time. I know. I did do a couple streams this week already. I streamed for my birthday last week, and I streamed some Lego Harry Potter this week. And so I'm trying to get back to it. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully I'm not too loud. Please let me know if the sound is not great. Yeah, so I've just been... I kind of explained it in my stream yesterday that I did one of the best things that I have ever done back in September of last year. I went on a trip. I went to Universal Studios in Orlando to see the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And I actually brought goodies with me to show you what I got. First of all, I got this shirt. It says Hogwarts Alumni. It doesn't fit me anymore because it shrunk in the wash, but I don't care. I'm wearing it anyway. And I got this pin too. It says Head Girl. I know you can't really tell, but it says Head Girl on it. And what else? Oh, I have plushies. I have this adorable Dobby plushie. He is so cute. The cutest thing I ever did see. And then I also have this guy, a Pygmy Puff. I already have a Pygmy Puff from the first time that I went, but they're different now because they make noise now. Yeah. Very cute. Yes, I have those. I bought this bag. I bought a lot of stuff. This isn't even everything that I bought. I bought this bag, this backpack, which is super cute. Yeah, they had them. You can get them in any of the houses. They didn't just have Gryffindor ones. They had one for every house. Let's see. I have a Decoy Detonator that I got from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes in Diagon Alley. And it actually moves and makes sound. Very, very fun. I bought a Gryffindor tie and a Gryffindor bandana. And I also have my very own Triwizard Cup. It's actually, wait a minute. It lights up? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know it did that. That's neat. I just was looking at it and I realized that there was an on switch at the bottom. Well, that's neat. Yeah, my own Triwizard Cup. It's kind of cheaply made, but that's okay. It looks like it would be made out of glass, but it's not. It's plastic. But it's still really neat. I was holding it in one of the shops, and some random person came up to me and was like, "Where did you get that?" And I was like, "I bought it over there." That's what's really great about being a Harry Potter fan. You're never really talking. If you're both Harry Potter fans, you're not really strangers, are you? And then I got this notebook with my name embossed on it. It's pretty sweet. You can get it in any house you want with your name embossed on it. Thank you, Julia. And I also got a wand, which I'm trying to pull out of the box, which gave me the special ability to make magic happen around the place, which I did, most of them, if not all of them, because sometimes they're a little finicky, which I'll explain. I'm making a video. On my trip, I took a vlog, like every other step that I took. I took tons of pictures, tons of video. I'm going to put it all together in a special video, and I'm going to post it. But here's the map that kind of came with the wand. It shows you both parks, both Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley, and it shows kind of where you can do spells. It has like a special, I don't know, magnet or something at the end of it, and it has like sensors, laser sensors, so you can do magic. You can make things float, make things happen. I don't know how to explain it. I don't think I'm explaining it very well, but I took lots of video of it, so yay, this is my wand. It's super, super pretty, and it's actually a Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them wand. It's actually, it's Serafina Piquari? I don't know. I'm not a Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them fan, so I have no idea who that is or how to pronounce her name. I don't care. She's a really pretty wand, so that's the one I picked. It's so pretty. Yeah, and then I bought a puzzle as well, so I like puzzles, and I'll show you that in a second. No, I have stuff everywhere. You can't tell, but I have stuff everywhere. Okay. Yeah, but I got this puzzle, Marauder's Map. It's only 300 pieces, which is a rookie puzzle for someone like me. But still, really cool, really neat. And I bought a bunch of other stuff, and I did more stuff than just Harry Potter. But Harry Potter is what we're most interested in on this channel. So, but I will be posting a video about that soon. Yeah, it was so fun. But anyway, I had been gone from YouTube for so long because I had so much fun on that trip. I loved planning it out. I loved going, and I couldn't sleep for like a month because I would be thinking about it before going to sleep and just getting too excited. And so the trip happened, and then I came home, and then I was like, what do I do now? I essentially fell into a pretty deep depression, deeper than I've been in a long time. I just felt like this sense of emptiness, this sense of what do I do now? Because I had been planning that trip for years. Since I started college, since Diagon Alley even opened, I started planning that trip. And I only came into that money to actually do it last fall. And so I just felt stuck. Like, I don't want to say this, but I felt kind of like life wasn't worth living anymore because what I had wanted to accomplish I had done, and I felt like I'm never going to do anything that cool ever again, except maybe get married and have kids, but there's nothing I can do about those things. I can't control those things. So I was like, there's not a trip. There's not another trip I could do that I could take that could be as cool as that. I spent weeks thinking, well, what if I went, I don't know, what if I went to Paris? Or like, I've been to Paris, I've been to London, I've been to Rome, where there's nowhere else in the world I want to go, nowhere else. And so I just got really depressed. I was like, what am I gonna do? And so I was really depressed about it for a good solid 4 weeks after that trip. And then I was vaguely depressed sometime after that. And then winter hit, and winter can be really bad. If you've ever suffered depression, you know winter can be really hard because the sun isn't out quite as much anymore. Things aren't happening besides the holidays, especially when the holidays end. It's just kind of, winter's just kind of hard, especially in the area where I live. So, yeah, I just got really depressed, and getting out of bed was priority, was like the focus. I couldn't even think about doing YouTube. I couldn't even think about doing barely anything. So that's mostly why I disappeared. But I don't know. I don't know why I'm back all of a sudden, honestly. I was thinking about coming back. I got really sad. I got really sad about a kind of relationship that I had. I mean, it wasn't really a relationship, but it was kind of a relationship that had ended, and I was really depressed about it, and I was like, you know what? I just want to stream. Like, just out of nowhere, I decided I want to stream. I just want to play Lego Harry Potter, and I want to stream it. That's what I wanted to do, to kind of cheer myself up. So I was going to do it, and then I got COVID, and my throat was completely thrashed. So it didn't end up happening that week. But then I thought, but my birthday's in a little bit. How about I have a birthday stream where I do that? And so that's what I did. I streamed on my birthday, and it was great. It wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. That's pretty typical of my birthday streams. Yeah, I did a surprise stream shortly after that, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Nobody watched it, but I had so much fun. So, I don't know. I guess I'm back for now. I don't know. I'm kind of riding on a high, and I'm just going to keep riding it for as far as it goes. So, here I am. Yeah. But I am better. I've been COVID free for like 2 weeks. I'm still coughing a little bit. I will be coughing probably during the stream, but that's it. I'm not even stuffy anymore. It's virtually gone. But yeah. Can't think if there's anything else I want to talk about. But it's been a long time. Like, I was looking at the chapters that I was going to read for today, and I was like, The Very Secret Diary, which is my favorite chapter ever. Oh, that's my favorite, because I love the Valentines. It's for Valentine's. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even plan that. It's like Valentine's Day, or in the story. So that's cool. And then the next chapter is Cornelius Fudge, and I was like, you mean where Hagrid gets taken to Azkaban? I was like, but we haven't even taken the Polyjuice potion yet. And then I looked and I was like, wait a minute, that was my last video. Like, we took the Polyjuice potion in my last video, so it's been a really long time. I forgot where I was, but we're almost done with Chamber's Secrets, and then I'll have 2 books done. Also, I looked at my channel, and I have 126 videos on my channel, which is wild to me. I feel like I don't do a whole lot, and then I actually look at my channel, I was like, wow, I've actually done plenty. So that's really cool. Yeah. So I will be streaming next week as well, and next week, the plan moving forward is I'm going to upload just when I can. I'm not really super worried about uploads. I'm currently working on the video for my Universal Studios trip. That's going to be the next upload. I've already started it, but who knows how long it's going to take me to do. But as far as streaming goes, I'm going to be streaming more Lego Harry Potter. I'm just going to stream twice a week. I'm going to stream a video game, and I'm going to stream reading. Next week, Friday night at 7 p.m., I believe, I'm going to be streaming. Oh, did I put that? I didn't put the time. I did post my schedule on Twitter. I don't think I put the time of the streams. I probably should fix that. Probably 7 o'clock on Friday and 8 o'clock on Saturday. We'll see. But I want to kind of do that every week. Yeah, that is a lot of videos. I'm blown away. Actually, when I was actually really nervous to open my my YouTube studio. I haven't opened it in forever because I was afraid it's going to be like, you have no subscribers, no one's watching. Like, I was going to have to restart, essentially. But I opened it, and it was like, I don't know, it said something about like 100 and something hours of watch time. And I'm like, really? Like, who's watching my videos? I don't know, but I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, it wasn't that bad when I opened it. But yes, streaming next week, and we'll be reading chapters. So on Saturday night, 8 o'clock, chapters 15 and 16. And I think there's only 18 chapters in this book, so pretty sure it's 18 chapters. So we are almost done. And then we'll go on to Prisoner of Azkaban. Pretty exciting. Yeah, okay. Chapter 18. Okay. And at the end of the month, now don't hold me to this because I haven't done very much research at all, but I was thinking of doing a sort of charity live stream. Now I know not a ton of people watch my live streams, but maybe a charity live stream will get people to watch. I gotta pick a charity. I probably want to do something for Black History Month, and I gotta research on exactly how to do charity live streams. I don't know. But I think it would be really fun and really cool. So I want to try to do that once a month, and at the end of this month, the last week of this month, I'll see when to do it and whatever. But anyway, that's the plan for now. Am I reading on Saturdays? I'm gonna have to pick a day. Next week it is gonna be on Saturday. But it might not always be on a Saturday, because my work schedule is different every week. So I'll have to see. But as for next week, I'm streaming Friday and Saturday. Okay. I think that's everything I want to talk about. So now I'm going to read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 13, The Very Secret Diary. Okay. Let's see if I remember how to read. Oh, thanks. Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have to message about you. I'll have to message you later about charity live streams. Awesome. Okay. Hermione remained in the hospital wing for several weeks. There was a flurry of rumor about her disappearance when the rest of the school arrived back from their Christmas holidays. Because, of course, everyone thought that she had been attacked. Because people are being attacked by the Heir of Slytherin. It's been a long time. Just in case you don't know. I read the first sentence before the stream just to like kind of get it back into my head of how to read this. And I was like, why? Oh, of course, yeah. So many students filed past the hospital wing trying to catch a glimpse of her that Madame Pomfrey took out her curtains again and placed them around Hermione's bed to spare her the shame of being seen with a furry face. Yeah, she accidentally took cat hair in her Polyjuice potion, so she's part cat. That's the problem. Harry and Ron went to visit her every evening. When the new term started, they brought her each day's homework. If I'd sprouted whiskers, I'd take a break from work, said Ron, tipping a stack of books onto Hermione's bedside table one evening. Don't be silly, Ron. I've got to keep up, said Hermione briskly. Her spirits were greatly improved by the fact that all the hair had gone from her face and her eyes were turning slowly back to brown. I don't suppose you've got any new leads, she added in a whisper, so that Madame Pomfrey couldn't hear her. Nothing, said Harry gloomily. I was so sure it was Malfoy. Aren't you always, though? And it's never him until the one time that it's gonna be him, said Ron for about the 100th time. What's that? Oh, yeah, said Harry, pointing to something gold sticking out from under Hermione's pillow. Just to get well called, said Hermione hastily, trying to poke it out of sight, but Ron was too quick for her. He pulled it out, flicked it open, and read aloud, To Miss Granger, wishing you a speedy recovery from your concerned teacher, Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, Order of Merlin, 3rd class, honorary member of the Dark Force Defense League, and 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. Ron looked up at Hermione, disgusted. You sleep with this under your pillow? But Hermione was spared answering by Madame Pomfrey sweeping over with her evening dose of medicine. Is Lockhart the smarmiest bloke you've ever met or what? Ron said to Harry as they left the infirmary and started upstairs toward Gryffindor Tower. Snape had given them so much homework, Harry thought he was likely to be in the 6th year before he finished it. Interesting, mentioning the 6th year. But they say that every year. We're like, oh my gosh, the homework is so much harder. We have so much more homework than we did last year. They say that every year. Ron was just saying he wished he had asked Hermione how many rat tails he was supposed to add to a hair-raising potion when an angry outburst from the floor above reached their ears. That's Filch, Harry muttered as they hurried up the stairs and paused out of sight, listening hard. You don't think someone else has been attacked? Said Ron tensely. They stood still, their heads inclined toward Filch's voice, which sounded quite hysterical. Even more work for me, mopping all night, like I haven't got enough to do. No, this is the final straw. I'm going to Dumbledore. His footsteps receded along the out-of-sight corridor, and they heard a distant door slam. They poked their heads around the corner. Filch had clearly been manning his usual lookout post. They were once again on the spot where Mrs. Norris had been attacked. They saw at a glance what Filch had been shouting about. A great flood of water stretched over half the corridor, and it looked as though it was still seeping from under the door of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Now that Filch had stopped shouting, they could hear Myrtle's wails echoing off the bathroom walls. Now what's up with her? Said Ron. Let's go and see, said Harry, and holding their robes over their ankles, they stepped through the great wash of water to the door, bearing its out-of-order sign, ignored it as always, and entered. Moaning Myrtle was crying, if possible, louder and harder than ever before. She seemed to be hiding down her usual toilet. It was dark in the bathroom because the candles had been extinguished in the great rush of water that had left both walls and floor soaking wet. What's up, Myrtle? Said Harry. Who's that? Glugged Myrtle miserably. Come to throw something else at me? Harry waded across to her stall and said, Why would I throw something at you? He probably is. Ron probably is jealous. Don't ask me, Myrtle shouted, emerging from a wave of yet more water, which splashed onto the already sopping floor. Here I am, minding my own business, and someone thinks it's funny to throw a book at me. But it can't hurt you. If someone throws something at you, said Harry reasonably, I mean, it'd just go right through you, wouldn't it? Yeah, because she's crying because of the physical pain, Harry. Don't forget about the emotional pain of somebody throwing something at you. But it's actually Ron that says that in the movie. Interesting. He had said the wrong thing. That's what it says. That's yes. Myrtle puffed herself up and shrieked, Let's all throw books at Myrtle because she can't feel it. 10 points if you get it through her stomach. 50 points if it goes through her head. Well, ha ha ha, what a lovely game, I don't think. Who threw it at you anyway? Asked Harry. I don't know. I was just sitting in the U-bend, thinking about death, and it fell right through the top of my head, said Myrtle, glaring at them. It's over there. It got washed out. Harry and Ron looked under the sink where Myrtle was pointing. A small, thin book lay there. It had a shabby black cover and was as wet as everything else in the bathroom. Harry stepped forward to pick it up, but Ron suddenly flung out an arm to hold him back. Ooh, interesting. What? Said Harry. Are you crazy? Said Ron. It could be dangerous. Oh my gosh! Ron has no idea how right he is. That is super spooky. But he's right, though. It's a Horcrux. Forget the fact that you can talk to Lord Voldemort through this thing. It contains a piece of Lord Voldemort's soul, and Ron doesn't even know it. That's crazy. Dangerous, said Harry, laughing. Come off it. How could it be dangerous? You'd be surprised, said Ron, who was looking apprehensively at the book. Some of the books the Ministry's confiscated. Dad's told me. There was one that burned your eyes out. And everyone who reads Sonnets of a Sorcerer spoke in limericks for the rest of their lives. And some old witch in Bath had a book that you could never stop reading. You just had to wander around with your nose in it, trying to do everything one-handed, and... All right, I've got your point, said Harry. The little book lay on the floor, nondescript and soggy. Well, we won't find out unless we look at it, he said. Yeah, who cares if we burn our eyes out? And he ducked around Ron and picked it off the floor. Harry saw at once that it was a diary, and the faded year on the cover told him it was 50 years old. Hint, hint. He opened it eagerly. On the first page, he could just make out the name T.M. Riddle in smudged ink. Hang on, said Ron, who had approached cautiously and was looking over Harry's shoulder. I know that name. T.M. Did I say T.M. Riddle? I might have said... No, I said T.M. Riddle. Yeah. I don't want to... Obviously, it's Tom Marvolo Riddle, but I was afraid that I had said that because I already knew what it stood for. T.M. Riddle got an award for special services to the school 50 years ago. How on earth do you know that? Said Harry in amazement. Because Filch made me polish his shield about 50 times in detention, said Ron resentfully. That was the one I burped slugs all over. If you'd wiped slime off a name for an hour, you'd remember it too. Harry peeled the wet pages apart. They were completely blank. There wasn't the faintest trace of writing on any of them, not even Auntie Mabel's birthday, or dentist, 3:30. He never wrote in it, said Harry, disappointed. I wonder why someone wanted to flush it away, said Ron curiously. Harry turned to the back cover of the book and saw the printed name of a variety store on Vauxhall Road, London. Does that mean it was from a Muggle shop? Yeah. He must have been Muggle-born, said Harry thoughtfully, to have bought a diary from Vauxhall Road. Well, it's not much use to you, said Ron. He dropped his voice. 50 points if you can... 50 points if you can get it through Myrtle's nose. Ron. I wrote something on the edge here. Oh, interesting. Okay. Harry, however, pocketed it. Yeah. Hermione left the hospital wing de-whiskered, tailless, and fur-free at the beginning of February. Around what day it is today. On her first evening back in Gryffindor Tower, Harry showed her T.M. Riddle's diary and told her the story of how they had found it. Ooh, it might have hidden powers, said Hermione enthusiastically, taking the diary and looking at it closely. If it has, it's hiding them very well, said Ron. Maybe it's shy. I don't know why you don't chuck it, Harry. I wish I knew why someone did try to chuck it, said Harry. I wouldn't mind knowing how Riddle got an award for special services to Hogwarts, either. So, Harry kind of, it's not really, but he kind of has an obsession with the diary. He wants to know what it is, where it's from. He wants to know more about it. I made a parallel to that obsession with the Half-Blood Prince's book from Half-Blood Prince. And as I continue to explain, there's going to be specific connections between the second one and the sixth one because they meet on the same line in the Harry Potter pyramid, as I like to refer. Yeah, so I noticed that, and I wrote it down in the corner. Probably a note for the Harry Potter class I took. That's where I learned about the Harry Potter pyramid, the parallel pyramid, was from the class I took in college. And I had to read this for my college course. Where am I? Could have been anything, said Ron. Maybe he got 50. Maybe he got 30 owls, or OWLs. I don't know how I should say that. Owls. OWLs. I'll say owls. Saved a teacher from the giant squid. Maybe he murdered Myrtle. That would have done everyone a favor. Which is funny because that is exactly what he did. That's not why he got the award, but he did do that. But Harry could tell from the arrested look on Hermione's face that she was thinking what he was thinking. "What?" said Ron, looking from one to the other. "Well, the Chamber of Secrets was opened 50 years ago, wasn't it?" Oh, whoops. I was saying that in Hermione's voice. Let me do this again. "Well, the Chamber of Secrets was opened 50 years ago, wasn't it?" he said. "That's what Malfoy said." "Yeah?" said Ron slowly. "And this diary is 50 years old," said Hermione, tapping it excitedly. "So?" "Oh, Ron, wake up!" snapped Hermione. "We know the person who opened the chamber last time was expelled 50 years ago. We know T.M. Riddle got an award for special services to the school 50 years ago. Well, what if Riddle got his special award for catching the Heir of Slytherin? His diary would probably tell us everything, where the chamber is, and how to open it, and what sort of creature lives in it. The person who's behind the attacks this time wouldn't want this lying around, would they?" Well, that's in a deleted scene. This conversation is in a deleted scene in the movie. "That's a brilliant theory, Hermione," said Ron, "with just one tiny little flaw. There's nothing written in his diary." That was actually Harry's line in the deleted scene, but it was Ron who said that. But Hermione was pulling her wand out of her bag. "It might be invisible ink," she whispered. She tapped the diary 3 times and said, "Apparicium? Apparicium." Nothing happened. Undaunted, Hermione shoved her hand back into her bag and pulled out what appeared to be a bright red eraser. "It's a revealer. I got it in Diagon Alley," she said. She rubbed hard on January 1st. Nothing happened. "I'm telling you, there's nothing to find in there," said Ron. "Riddle just got a diary for Christmas and couldn't be bothered filling it in." "Yeah, but why would somebody throw it away if it didn't have anything?" Oh. Harry couldn't explain, even to himself, why he didn't just throw Riddle's diary away. The fact was that even though he knew the diary was blank, he kept absent-mindedly picking it up, turning the pages as though it were a story he wanted to finish. And while Harry was sure he had never heard the name T.M. Riddle before, it still seemed to mean something to him. Yeah, a revealer instead of an eraser, that's right. Almost as though Riddle was a friend he'd had when he was very small and had half forgotten. I wouldn't say friend. But this was absurd. He'd never had friends before Hogwarts. Dudley had made sure of that. Nevertheless, Harry was determined to find out more about Riddle. So next day at break, he headed for the trophy room to examine Riddle's special award, accompanied by an interested Hermione and a thoroughly unconvinced Ron, who told them he'd seen enough of the trophy room to last him a lifetime. Riddle's burnished gold shield was tucked away in a corner cabinet. It didn't carry details of why it had been given to him. Good thing, too, or it'd be even bigger, and I'd still be polishing it, said Ron. However, they did find Riddle's name on an old medal for magical merit, and on a list of old head boys. "He sounds like Percy," said Ron, wrinkling his nose in disgust. "Prefect, head boy, probably top of every class." "You say that like it's a bad thing," said Hermione in a slightly hurt voice. The sun had now begun to shine weakly on Hogwarts again. Inside the castle, the mood had grown more hopeful. There had been no more attacks since those on Justin and nearly Headless Nick, and Madame Pomfrey was pleased to report that the mandrakes were becoming moody and secretive, meaning that they were fast leaving childhood. So the reason why there aren't many attacks is because Ginny, got rid of the diary. And the mandrakes are growing from babies and they're growing into teenagers. Like people, they're becoming moody and secretive. The moment their acne clears up, they'll be ready for repotting again, Harry heard her telling Filch kindly one afternoon. "And after that, it won't be long until we're cutting them up and stewing them. You'll have Mrs. Norris back in no time." Perhaps the Heir of Slytherin had lost his or her nerve, thought Harry. It must be getting riskier and riskier to open the Chamber of Secrets, with the school so alert and suspicious. Perhaps the monster, whatever it was even now settling itself down to hibernate for another 50 years. Ernie Macmillan of Hufflepuff didn't take this cheerful view. He was still convinced that Harry was the guilty one, that he had given himself away at the dueling club. Peeves wasn't helping matters. He kept popping up in the crowded corridor singing, "Oh, Potter, you rotter," and now with the dance routine to match. Gilderoy Lockhart seemed to think he himself had made the attacks stop. Harry overheard him telling Professor McGonagall so while the Gryffindors were lining up for Transfiguration. "I don't think there'll be any more trouble, Minerva," he said, tapping his nose knowingly and winking. "I think the chamber has been locked for good this time. The culprit must have known it was only a matter of time before I caught him. Rather sensible to stop now, before I came down hard on him. You know what the school needs now is a morale booster. Wash away the memories of last term. I won't say any more just now, but I think I know just the thing." My favorite thing. He tapped his nose again and strode off. Lockhart's idea of a morale booster became clear at breakfast time on February 14th. That's the 11th, but we're pretty close. Harry hadn't had much sleep because of a late-running Quidditch practice the night before, and he hurried down to the Great Hall slightly late. He thought for a moment that he'd walked through the wrong doors. The walls were all covered with large, lurid pink flowers. Worse still, heart-shaped confetti was falling from the pale blue ceiling. Harry went over to the Gryffindor table where Ron was sitting, looking sickened, and Hermione seemed to have been overcome with giggles. "What's going on?" Harry asked them, sitting down and wiping confetti off his bacon. Ron pointed to the teacher's table, apparently too disgusted to speak. Lockhart, wearing lurid pink robes to match the decorations, was waving for silence. The teachers on either side of him were looking stony-faced. From where he sat, Harry could see a muscle going in Professor McGonagall's cheek. Snape looked as though someone had just fed him a large beaker of Skelegro. "Happy Valentine's Day," Lockhart shouted, "and may I thank the 46 people who have so far sent me cards. Yes, I've taken the liberty of arranging this little surprise for you all, and it doesn't end here." Lockhart clapped his hands, and through the doors to the entrance hall marched a dozen surly-looking dwarfs. Not just any dwarfs, however. Lockhart had them all wearing golden wings and carrying harps. "My friendly card-carrying cupids," beamed Lockhart. "They will be roving around the school today delivering your valentines. And the fun doesn't stop here. I'm sure my colleagues will want to enter into the spirit of the occasion. Why not ask Professor Snape to show you how to whip up a love potion?" No, don't do that. Yikes. "And while you're at it, Professor Flitwick knows more about entrancing enchantments than any wizard I've ever met, the sly old dog." Professor Flitwick buried his face in his hands. Snape was looking as though the first person to ask him for a love potion would be force-fed poison. "Please, Hermione, tell me you weren't one of the 46, said Ron as they left the Great Hall for their first lesson. Hermione suddenly became very interested in searching her bag for her schedule and didn't answer. All day long the dwarfs kept barging into their classes to deliver valentines to the annoyance of the teachers, and late that afternoon as the Gryffindors were walking upstairs for charms, one of the dwarfs caught up with Harry. "Oi, you! Harry Potter!" shouted a particularly grim-looking dwarf, elbowing people out of the way to get to Harry. Hot all over at the thought of being given a valentine in front of a line of first-years, which happened to include Ginny Weasley, Harry tried to escape. The dwarf, however, cut his way through the crowd by kicking people's shins and reaching him before he'd gone 2 paces. This is my favorite part. "I've got a musical message to deliver to Harry Potter in person," he said, twanging his harp in a threatening sort of way. "Not here!" Harry hissed, trying to escape. "Stay still!" grunted the dwarf, grabbing hold of Harry's bag and pulling him back. "Let me go!" Harry snarled, tugging. With a loud ripping noise, his bag split in 2. His books, wand, parchment, and quill spilled onto the floor, and his ink bottle smashed over everything. Harry scrambled around, trying to pick it all up before the dwarf started singing, causing something of a hold-up in the corridor. Oh no, it just got worse. What's going on here? Came the cold, drawling voice of Draco Malfoy. Harry started stuffing everything feverishly. Just run! Forget it! Just drop it and run! Run! Harry started stuffing everything feverishly into his ripped bag, desperate to get away before Malfoy could hear his musical valentine. What's all this commotion? Said another familiar voice as Percy Weasley arrived. Losing his head, Harry tried to make a run for it, but the dwarf seized him around the knees and brought him crashing to the floor. Right, he said, sitting on Harry's ankles. Here is your singing valentine. His eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad. His hair is as dark as a blackboard. I wish he was mine. He's really divine. The hero who conquered the Dark Lord. Harry would have given all the Golden Gringotts to evaporate on the spot. Trying valiantly to laugh along with everyone else, he got up, his feet numb from the weight of the dwarf, as Percy Weasley did his best to disperse the crowd, some of whom were crying with mirth. Off you go, off you go. The bell rang 5 minutes ago. Off to class now, he said, shooing some of the younger students away. And you, Malfoy. Harry, glancing over, saw Malfoy stoop and snatch up something. Leering, he showed it to Crabbe and Goyle, and Harry realized that he'd got Riddle's diary. Give that back, said Harry quietly. Wonder what Potter's written in this, said Malfoy, who obviously hadn't noticed the year on the cover and thought he had Harry's own diary. A hush fell over the onlookers. Ginny was staring from the diary to Harry, looking terrified. Now, Ginny's the one who sent the message, sent the dwarf the valentine. And so you're supposed to figure that out, and you're supposed to be like, oh, she's upset because the valentine didn't go so well. That's not why she's upset. She sees the diary, she realizes Harry has it, and she's freaking out because no one's supposed to have it. Least of all, Harry Potter. I also think Ginny's crush on Harry is super cute. That's also why I like this chapter. This is my favorite scene. I just love this. It's just great. Hand it over, Malfoy, said Percy sternly. When I've had a look, said Malfoy, waving the diary tauntingly at Harry. Fine, do what you want. There's nothing in it. Percy said, as a school prefect. But Harry had lost his temper. He pulled out his wand and shouted, Expelliarmus! And just as Snape had disarmed Lockhart, so Malfoy found the diary shooting out of his hand into the air. Ron, grinning broadly, caught it. Harry, said Percy loudly, no magic in the corridors. I'll have to report this, you know. Harry didn't care. He was one up on Malfoy, and that was worth 5 points from Gryffindor any day. Malfoy was looking furious, and as Ginny passed him to enter her classroom, he yelled spitefully after her, I don't think Potter liked your valentine much. See, you're supposed to think, oh, that's why she's upset. That's not why she's upset. Ginny covered her face with her hands and ran into the class. Snarling, Ron pulled out his wand, too, but Harry pulled him away. Ron didn't need to spend the whole of Charms belching slugs. All right, his wand is, not functioning well. It wasn't until they had reached Professor Flitwick's class that Harry noticed something rather odd about Riddle's diary. All his other books were drenched in scarlet ink. The diary, however, was as clean as it had been before the ink bottle had smashed all over it. He tried to point this out to Ron, but Ron was having trouble with his wand again. Large purple bubbles were blossoming out of the end, and he wasn't much interested in anything else. Harry went to bed before anyone else in the dormitory that night. This was partly because he didn't think he could stand Fred and George singing, His eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad, one more time, and partly because he wanted to examine Riddle's diary again and knew that Ron thought he was wasting his time. Harry sat on his four-poster and flicked through the blank pages, not one of which had a trace of scarlet ink on it. Then he pulled a new bottle out of his bedside cabinet, dipped his quill into it, and dropped the blot onto the first page of the diary. The ink shone brightly on the paper for a second, and then, as though it was being sucked into the page, vanished. Excited, Harry loaded up his quill a second time and wrote, My name is Harry Potter. The words shone momentarily on the page, and they too sank without a trace. Then, at last, something happened. Oozing back out of the page, in his very own ink, came words Harry had never written. "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary?" These words, too, faded away, but not before Harry had started to scribble back, "Someone tried to flush it down a toilet." It's like texting. Wizard texting. He waited eagerly for Riddle's reply. "Lucky that I recorded my memories in some more lasting way than ink, but I always knew that there would be those who would not want this diary read." "What do you mean?" Harry scrawled, blotting the page in his excitement. "I mean that this diary holds memories of terrible things, things that were covered up, things that happened at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." "That's where I am now," Harry wrote quickly. "I'm at Hogwarts, and horrible stuff's been happening. Do you know anything about the Chamber of Secrets?" His heart was hammering. Riddle's reply came quickly. His writing became untidier, as though he was hurrying to tell all he knew. "Of course I know about the Chamber of Secrets. In my day, they told us it was a legend, that it did not exist, but this was a lie. In my 5th year, the chamber was opened, and the monster attacked several students, finally killing one. I caught the person who'd opened the chamber." Sorry, my neighbor's dog is loud. "I caught the person who'd opened the chamber, and he was expelled. But the headmaster, Professor Dippet, ashamed that such a thing had happened at Hogwarts, forbade me to tell the truth. A story was given out that the girl had died in a freak accident. I don't remember this. They gave me a nice, shiny, engraved trophy for my trouble, and warned me to keep my mouth shut, but I knew it could happen again. The monster lived on, and the one who had the power to release it was not imprisoned." Well, that much is true. Harry nearly upset his ink bottle in his hurry to write back. "It's happening again now. There have been 3 attacks, and no one seems to know who's behind them. Who was it last time?" "I can show you, if you like," came Riddle's reply. "You don't have to take my word for it. I can take you inside my memory of the night when I caught him." Harry hesitated, his quill suspended over the diary. What did Riddle mean? How could he be taken inside somebody else's memory? Which is also another connection to Half-Blood Prince, where he and Dumbledore go into other people's memories in the Pensieve. He glanced nervously at the door to the dormitory, which was growing dark. When he looked back at the diary, he saw fresh words forming. "Let me show you." Harry paused for a fraction of a second, and then wrote 2 letters. "Okay." The pages of the diary began to blow as though caught in a high wind, stopping halfway through the month of June. Mouth hanging open, Harry saw that the little square for June 13th seemed to have turned into a minuscule television screen. His hands trembling slightly, he raised the book to press his eye against the little window, and before he knew what was happening, he was tilting forward. The window was widening. He felt his body leave his bed, and he was pitched headfirst through the opening in the page into a whirl of color and shadow. He felt his feet hit solid ground, and stood, shaking, as the blurred shapes around him came suddenly into focus. He knew immediately where he was. The circular room, with the sleeping portraits, was Dumbledore's office, but it wasn't Dumbledore who was sitting behind the desk. A wizened, frail-looking wizard, bald except for a few wisps of white hair, was reading a letter by candlelight. Harry had never seen this man before. "I'm sorry," he said shakily. "I didn't mean to butt in." But the wizard didn't look up. He continued to read, frowning slightly. Harry drew nearer to his desk and stammered, I'll just go, shall I?" Still the wizard ignored him. He didn't seem even to have heard him. Thinking that the wizard might be deaf, Harry raised his voice. "If he's deaf, he still can't hear you, no matter how loud you talk." "Sorry I disturbed you. I'll go now," he half-shouted. The wizard folded up the letter with a sigh, stood up, walked past Harry without glancing at him, and went to draw the curtains at his window. The sky outside the window was ruby red. It seemed to be sunset. The wizard went back to the desk, sat down, and twiddled his thumbs, watching the door. How does Riddle know any of this? This isn't Riddle's memory. This would be Professor Tippet's memory, wouldn't it? Harry looked around the office. No Fawkes the Phoenix, no wiring silver contraptions. This was Hogwarts as Riddle had known it, meaning that this unknown wizard was headmaster, not Dumbledore, and he, Harry, was little more than a phantom, completely invisible to the people of 50 years ago. There was a knock on the office door. "Enter," said the old wizard in a feeble voice. A boy of about 16 entered, taking off his pointed hat. A silver prefix badge was glinting on his chest. He was much taller than Harry, but he, too, had jet-black hair. "Ah, Riddle," said the headmaster. "You wanted to see me, Professor Dippet," said Riddle. He looked nervous. "Sit down," said Dippet. "I've just been reading the letter you sent me." "Oh," said Riddle. He sat down, gripping his hands together very tightly. "My dear boy," said Dippet kindly, "I cannot possibly let you stay at school over the summer. Surely you want to go home for the holidays?" "No," said Riddle at once. "I'd much rather stay at Hogwarts than go back to that. "You live in a Muggle orphanage during the holidays, I believe," said Dippet curiously. "Yes, sir," said Riddle, reddening slightly. "You are Muggle-born?" "Half-blood, sir," said Riddle. "Muggle father, witch mother." "And are both your parents? My mother died just after I was born, sir. They told me at the orphanage she lived just long enough to name me. Tom after my father, Mavolu after my grandfather." Dippet clucked his tongue sympathetically. "And we're going to learn more about this little family in Half-Blood Prince, another connection." "The thing is, Tom," he sighed, "special arrangements might have been made for you. But in the current circumstances—" "You mean all these attacks, sir?" said Riddle, and Harry's heart leapt, and he moved closer, scared of missing anything. "Precisely," said the headmaster. "My dear boy, you must see how foolish it would be of me to allow you to remain at the castle when term ends, particularly in light of the recent tragedy, the death of that poor little girl. You will be safer, by far, at your orphanage. As a matter of fact, the Ministry of Magic is even now talking about closing the school. We are no nearer locating the, source of all this unpleasantness." Which is funny, because Tom Riddle is the source of the unpleasantness. And now he's thinking, "Ah, crap. I did this. I ruined my chances of staying at Hogwarts for the summer." Riddle's eyes had widened. "Sir, if the person was caught, if it all stopped—" "What do you mean?" said Dippet, with a squeak in his voice, sitting up in his chair. "Riddle, do you mean you know something about these attacks?" "No, sir," said Riddle quickly. But Harry was sure it was the same sort of "no" that he himself had given Dumbledore. Dippet sank back, looking faintly disappointed. "You may go, Tom." Riddle slid off his chair and slouched out of the room. Harry followed him. Down the moving spiral staircase they went, emerging next to the gargoyle in the darkening corridor. Riddle stopped, and so did Harry, watching him. Harry could tell that Riddle was doing some serious thinking. He was biting his lip, his forehead furrowed. Then, as though he had suddenly reached a decision, he hurried off, Harry gliding noiselessly behind him. They didn't see another person until they reached the entrance hall, when a tall wizard, with long sweeping auburn hair and a beard, called to Riddle from the marble staircase. "What are you doing, wandering around this late, Tom?" Harry gaped at the wizard. He was none other than a 50-year younger Dumbledore. "I had to see the headmaster, sir," said Riddle. "Well, hurry off to bed," said Dumbledore, giving Riddle exactly the kind of penetrating stare Harry knew so well. "Best not to roam the corridors these days. Not since—" He sighed heavily, bade Riddle good night, and strode off. Riddle watched him walk out of sight, and then, moving quickly, headed straight down the stone steps to the dungeons, with Harry in hot pursuit. But to Harry's disappointment, Riddle led him not into a hidden passageway or secret tunnel, but to the very dungeon in which Harry had potions with Snape. The torches hadn't been lit, and when Riddle pushed the door almost closed, Harry could only just see him, standing stock still by the door, watching the passage outside. It felt to Harry that they were there for at least an hour. All he could see was the figure of Riddle at the door, staring through the crack, waiting like a statue. And just when Harry had stopped feeling expectant and tense, and started wishing he could return to the present, he heard something move behind the door. Someone was creeping along the passage. He heard whoever it was pass the dungeon where he and Riddle were hidden. Riddle, quiet as a shadow, edged through the door and followed, Harry tiptoeing behind him, forgetting that he couldn't be heard. For perhaps 5 minutes they followed the footsteps, until Riddle stopped suddenly, his head inclined in the direction of new noises. Harry heard a door creak open, and then someone speaking in a hoarse whisper. "Come on. Gotta get you out of here. Come now. In the box." There was something familiar about that voice. Riddle suddenly jumped around the corner. Harry stepped out behind him. He could see the dark outline of a huge boy who was crouching in front of an open door, a very large box next to it. "Evening, Rubeus," said Riddle sharply. The boy slammed the door shut and stood up. "What you doing down here, Tom?" Riddle stepped closer. "It's all over," he said. "I'm going to have to turn you in, Rubeus. The talking about closing Hogwarts if the attacks don't stop." "What do you—" "I don't think you meant to kill anyone. But the monsters don't make good pets. I suppose you just let it out for exercise and—" "It never killed no one," said the large boy, backing against the closed door. From behind him, Harry could hear a funny rustling and clicking. "Come on, Rubeus," said Riddle, moving yet closer. "The dead girl's parents will be here tomorrow. The least Hogwarts can do is make sure that that thing that killed their daughter is slaughtered." "It wasn't him," roared the boy, his voice echoing in the dark passage. "He wouldn't. He never." "Stand aside," said Riddle, drawing out his wand. His spell lit the corridor with a sudden flaming light. The door behind the large boy flew open with such force it knocked him into the wall opposite. And out of it came something that made Harry let out a long, piercing scream unheard by anyone. A fast, low-slung, hairy body, and a tangle of black legs, a gleam of many eyes, and a pair of razor-sharp pincers. Riddle raised his wand again, but he was too late. The thing bowled him over as it scuttled away, tearing up the corridor and out of sight. Riddle scrambled to his feet, looking after it. He raised his wand, but the huge boy leapt on him, seized his wand, and threw him back down, yelling, "No!" The scene whirled, the darkness became complete. Harry felt himself falling, and with a crash he landed spread-eagled on his four-poster in the Gryffindor dormitory, Riddle's diary laying open on his stomach. Before he had had time to regain his breath, the dormitory door opened and Ron came in. "There you are," he said. Harry sat up. He was sweating and shaking. "What's up?" said Ron, looking at him with concern. "It was Hagrid, Ron. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago." Ooh. And that is the end of Chapter 13. Well, now I've been streaming for about an hour. Well, I've been live. I've been on camera for about an hour. So now is a good time for a wee break. So I will take a 15-minute break, and then we will read Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. And it seems to be a decent length. But I will be right back. Hello, welcome back. I made myself a nice cup of hot cocoa because I wanted to. That's what breaks are for. Okay, and now we're going to be reading Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. One of our favorite people. Not. There's a great song about Cornelius Fudge by... Who sings that? I believe it's Harry and the Potters. Wizard Rock. If you've never heard of it. Greatest thing ever made. No, it's not. But Wizard Rock, look it up if you don't know what it is. It's basically just a bunch of... It's like fan fiction, but with music. Harry and the Potters, that particular band made a song about Cornelius Fudge, and it's a great song. Alright. Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. Harry, Ron, and Hermione had always known that Hagrid had an unfortunate liking for large and monstrous creatures. During their first year at Hogwarts, he had tried to raise a dragon in his little wooden house, and it would be a long time before they forgot the giant three-headed dog he'd christened Fluffy. And if, as a boy, Hagrid had heard that a monster was hidden somewhere in the castle, Harry was sure he'd have gone to any lengths for a glimpse of it. He'd probably thought it was a shame that the monster had been cooped up so long, and thought it deserved the chance to stretch its many legs. Harry could just imagine the 13-year-old Hagrid trying to fit a leash and collar on it, but he was equally certain that Hagrid would never have meant to kill anybody. Harry half wished he hadn't found out how to work Riddle's diary. Again and again, Ron and Hermione made him recount what he'd seen, until he was heartily sick of telling them, and sick of the long circular conversations that followed. Riddle might have got the wrong person, said Hermione. Maybe it was some other monster that was attacking people. How many monsters do you think this place can hold? Ron asked dully. You'd be surprised. We always knew Hagrid had been expelled, said Harry miserably, and the attacks must have stopped after Hagrid was kicked out. Otherwise Riddle wouldn't have got his award. Ron tried a different track. Riddle does sound like Percy. Who asked him to squeal on Hagrid anyway? But the monster had killed someone, Ron, said Hermione, and Riddle was going to go back to some Muggle orphanage if they'd closed Hogwarts, said Harry. I don't blame him for wanting to stay here. Harry and Voldemort connection there. You met Hagrid down Nocturne Alley, didn't you, Harry? He was buying a flesh-eating slug repellent, said Harry quickly. The three of them fell silent. After a long pause, Hermione voiced the naughtiest question of all in a hesitant voice. Okay, that sounds really bad. But it's not Naughty, it's Knotttiest, which I didn't know was a word. Naughtiest, meaning most gut-wrenching, like their stomach is tied in knots. Naughtiest. Do you think we should go and ask Hagrid about it all? That'd be a cheerful visit, said Ron. Hello, Hagrid. Tell us. Have you been setting anything mad and Harry loose in the castle lately? In the end, they decided that they would not say anything to Hagrid unless there was another attack. And as more and more days went by with no whisper from the disembodied voice, they became hopeful that they would never need to talk to him about why he had been expelled. It was now nearly 4 months since Justin and Nearly Headless Nick had been petrified, and nearly everybody seemed to think that the attacker, whoever it was, had retired for good. Peeves had finally got bored of his "Oh Potter, you rotter" song. Ernie Macmillan asked Harry quite politely to pass a bucket of leaping toadstools in herbology one day, and in March several of the mandrakes threw a loud and raucous party. Raucous? Raucous? That's how you pronounce that word, right? Raucous. Well, let's find out. I'm gonna see how to pronounce raucous? 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 Is that ruckus? Ruckus. 1 second. Let me turn on the desktop audio. What? Oh, that's not what I wanted.
Raucous.
Raucous. Raucous. Perfect. Thanks, Google. Okay. Cool. A ruckus party in Greenhouse 3. This made Professor Sprout very happy. The moment they started to move into each other's pots, we'll know they're fully mature, told Harry. Then we'll be able to revive those poor people in the hospital wing. The second years were given something new to think about during their Easter holidays. The time had come to choose their subjects for the third year, a matter that Hermione, at least, took very seriously. Ooh, this is exciting because they can take specialty topics now. It could affect our whole future, she told Harry and Ron as they pored over lists of new subjects, marking them with checks. I just want to give up potions, said Harry. We can't, said Ron gloomily. We keep all our old subjects, or I'd ditch defense against the dark arts. Why would you ditch that one? You're about to be in a war, sir. You're going to want that one. But that's very important, said Hermione, shocked. Not the way Lockhart teaches it. Oh, okay, that's fair. But he's not going to be around long, so don't worry about it. I haven't learned anything from him except not to set pixies loose. Neville Longbottom had been sent letters from all the witches and wizards in his family, all giving him different advice on what to choose. Confused and worried, he sat reading the subject lists, with his tongue poking out, asking people whether they thought arithmancy sounded more difficult than the study of ancient runes. Ooh. Well, arithmancy is like wizard math, and ancient runes is like wizard Latin. So, math or Latin? Personally, I prefer Latin over math. I would probably take ancient runes. Ancient runes are fascinating anyway, to me. Dean Thomas, who, like Harry, had grown up with muggles, ended up closing his eyes and jabbing his wand at the list, then picking the subjects it landed on. Harry took nobody's advice, but signed up for everything. Oh, yeah. That's what I'd do. Oh, look, I chose classes myself. I wrote them down here on my page. I wrote, I choose Care of Magical Creatures and Ancient Runes. Yep, that sounds about right. I still choose that. Oh, that's so good. I made that just right. Harry smiled grimly to himself at the thought of what Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia would say if he tried to discuss his career in wizardry with them. Not that he didn't get any guidance. Percy Weasley was eager to share his experience. Depends where you want to go, Harry, he said. It's never too early to think about the future, so I'd recommend divination. People say Muggle Studies is a soft option, but I personally think wizards should have a thorough understanding of the non-magical community, particularly if they're thinking of working in close contact with them. Look at my father. He has to deal with Muggle business all the time. My brother Charlie was always more of an outdoor type, so he went for Care of Magical Creatures. Play to your strengths, Harry. That is actually good, solid advice. Wow! Percy's not useless. Look at that. Let's see. Muggle Studies. Harry grew up with Muggles, so Muggle Studies wouldn't really be useful to him. Magical creatures. Yeah. But the only thing Harry felt he was really good at was Quidditch. In the end, he chose the same subjects as Ron, feeling that if he was lousy at them, at least he'd have someone friendly to help him. Gryffindor's next Quidditch match would be against Hufflepuff. Wood was insisting on team practices every night after dinner, so that Harry barely had time for anything but Quidditch and homework. However, the training sessions were getting better, or at least drier, and the evening before Saturday's match, he went up to his dormitory to drop off his broomstick, feeling Gryffindor's chances for the Quidditch Cup had never been better. But his cheerful mood didn't last long. At the top of the stairs to the dormitory, he met Neville Longbottom, who was looking frantic. "Harry, I don't know who did it. I just found..." Watching Harry fearfully, Neville pushed open the door. The contents of Harry's trunk had been thrown everywhere. His cloak lay ripped on the floor. Ripped? Why'd she do that? The bedclothes had been pulled off his four-poster, and the drawer had been pulled out of his bedside cabinet, the contents strewn over the mattress. So, we know later that Ginny is doing this. She wants the diary back because she does not want Harry to have it. She doesn't want to put Harry in danger, so she steals it back. So, she made a big mess. But this reminds me, earlier at Christmas time, Hermione was in Ron and Harry's dorm, and Ron's like, "What are you doing here? Girls can't be here." And she's like, "Yes, they can." Or maybe she doesn't say anything at all. But the point is, J.K. Rowling established that girls can be in the boys' dormitories. And she needed to establish that so that Ginny could get here, so that Ginny could come into Harry's room and steal the diary. Harry walked over to the bed, open-mouthed, treading on a few loose pages of Travels with Trolls. As he and Neville... She ripped out his books, too? She ripped up his books? What are you doing? She went way overboard. As he and Neville pulled the blankets back onto his bed, Ron, Dean, and Seamus came in. Dean swore loudly. What happened, Harry? No idea. But Ron was examining Harry's robes. All the pockets were hanging out. Someone was looking for something, said Ron. Is there anything missing? Harry started to pick up all his things and throw them into his trunk. It was only as he threw the last of the Lockhart books back into it that he realized what wasn't there. Riddle's diary's gone, he said in an undertone to Ron. What? Harry jerked his head toward the dormitory door and Ron followed him out. They hurried down to the Gryffindor common room, which was half empty, and joined Hermione, who was sitting alone reading a book called Ancient Runes Made Easy. Hermione looked aghast at the news. But only a Gryffindor could have stolen. Nobody else knows our password. Exactly, said Harry. They woke the next day to brilliant sunshine and a light, refreshing breeze. Perfect Quidditch conditions, said Wood enthusiastically at the Gryffindor table, loading the team's plates with scrambled eggs. Harry, buck up there. You need a decent breakfast. Harry had been staring down the packed Gryffindor table, wondering if the new owner of Riddle's diary was right in front of his eyes. Hermione had been urging him to report the robbery, but Harry didn't like the idea. He'd have to tell a teacher all about the diary, and how many people knew why Hagrid had been expelled 50 years ago. He didn't want to be the one who brought it all up again. As he left the Great Hall with Ron and Hermione to go and collect his Quidditch things, another very serious worry was added to Harry's growing list. He had just set foot on the marble staircase when he heard it yet again. Kill this time. Let me rip, tear. He shouted aloud, and Ron and Hermione both jumped away from him in alarm. The voice, said Harry, looking over his shoulder. I just heard it again. Didn't you? Ron shook his head, wide-eyed. Hermione, however, clapped a hand to her forehead. She just figured it out. Harry, I think I've just understood something. I've got to go to the library. Say goodbye to Hermione for a while, everybody. Bye, Hermione. And she sprinted away up the stairs. What does she understand? Said Harry drastically, still looking around, trying to tell where the voice had come from. Loads more than I do, said Ron, shaking his head. But why's she got to go to the library? Because that's what Hermione does, said Ron, shrugging. When in doubt, go to the library. Harry stood, irresolute, trying to catch the voice again, but people were now emerging from the Great Hall behind him, talking loudly, exiting through the front doors on their way to the Quidditch pitch. You'd better get moving, said Ron. It's nearly 11. The match. Harry raced up to the Gryffindor Tower, collected his Nimbus 2000, and joined the large crowd swarming across the grounds. But his mind was still in the castle, along with the bodiless voice, and as he pulled on his scarlet robes in the locker room, his only comfort was that everyone was now outside to watch the game. Except Hermione. Yeah, that's the only comfort you have, and it's about to be taken away from you. The teams walked onto the field to tumultuous applause. Oliver Wood took off for a warm-up flight around the goalposts. Madam Hooch released the balls. The Hufflepuffs, who played in Canary Yellow, were standing in a huddle, having a last-minute discussion of tactics. Harry was just mounting his broom when Professor McGonagall came half-marching, half-running across the pitch, carrying an enormous purple megaphone. Harry's heart dropped like a stone. This match has been cancelled, Professor McGonagall called through the megaphone, addressing the packed stadium. There were boos and shouts. Oliver Wood looked devastated, landed and ran toward Professor McGonagall without getting off his broomstick. But Professor, he shouted, we've got to play. The cup. Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall ignored him and continued to shout through her megaphone. All students are to make their way back to the house common rooms, where their heads of houses will give them further information. As quickly as you can, please. And she lowered the megaphone and beckoned Harry over to her. Potter, I think you'd better come with me. Wondering how she could possibly suspect him this time, Harry saw Ron detach himself from the complaining crowd. He came running up to them as they set off toward the castle. To Harry's surprise, Professor McGonagall didn't object. Yes, perhaps you'd better come too, Weasley. Some of the students swarming around them were grumbling about the match being cancelled. Others looked worried. Harry and Ron followed Professor McGonagall back into the school and up the marble staircase, but they weren't taken to anybody's office this time. This will be a bit of a shock, said Professor McGonagall in a surprisingly gentle voice as they approached the infirmary. "There has been another attack. Another double attack." Who was the other one? Oh, yeah, I remember. Harry did a horrible somersault. Professor McGonagall pushed the door open, and he and Ron entered. Madame Pomfrey was bending over a fifth-year girl with long curly hair. Harry recognized her as the Ravenclaw they'd accidentally asked for directions to the Slytherin common room, which is Penelope Clearwater. And on the bed next to her was Hermione, Ron groaned. Hermione lay utterly still, her eyes open and glassy. "They were found near the library," said Professor McGonagall. "I don't suppose either of you can explain this?" It was on the floor next to them. She was holding up a small circular mirror. Harry and Ron shook their heads, both staring at Hermione. "I will escort you back to the Gryffindor Tower," said Professor McGonagall heavily. "I need to address the students in any case." "All students will return to their house common rooms by 6 o'clock in the evening. No student is to leave the dormitories after that time. You'll be escorted to each lesson by a teacher. No student is to use the bathroom unaccompanied by a teacher. All further Quidditch training and matches are to be postponed. There will be no more evening activities." The Gryffindors packed inside the common room listened to Professor McGonagall in silence. She rolled up the parchment from which she had been reading, and said in a somewhat choked voice, "I need hardly add that I have rarely been so distressed. It is likely that the school will be closed unless the culprit behind these attacks is caught. I would urge anyone who thinks they might know anything about them to come forward." She climbed somewhat awkwardly out of the portrait hole, and the Gryffindors began talking immediately. "That's 2 Gryffindors down, not counting Gryffindor Ghost, and one Ravenclaw and 1 Hufflepuff," said the Weasley twins' friend Lee Jordan, counting on his fingers. "Haven't any of the teachers noticed that the Slytherins are all safe? Isn't it obvious all this stuff's coming from Slytherin? The Heir of Slytherin, the monster Slytherin. Why don't they just chuck all the Slytherins out?" he roared, to nods and scattered applause. And I wrote, "We don't blame all Slytherins." I said, "No, we do not blame all Slytherins for one Slytherin. For one Slytherin's mistake." Yeah. Percy Weasley was sitting in a chair behind Lee, but for once he didn't seem keen to make his views heard. He was looking pale and stunned. Yeah, Penelope Clearwater is his girlfriend, and she's petrified. He's in mourning. "Percy's in shock," George told Harry quietly. "That Ravenclaw girl, Penelope Clearwater, she was a prefect. I don't think he thought the monster would dare attack a prefect. That's not why he's upset. But Harry was only half listening. He didn't seem to be able to get rid of the picture of Hermione lying on the hospital bed as though carved out of stone. And if the culprit wasn't caught soon, he was looking at a lifetime back with the Dursleys. Tom Riddle had turned Hagrid in because he was faced with the prospect of a Muggle orphanage if the school closed. Harry now knew exactly how he had felt. "What are we going to do?" said Ron quietly in Harry's ear. "Do you think they suspect Hagrid?" "We've got to go and talk to him," said Harry, making up his mind. "I can't believe it's him this time, but if he set the monster loose last time, he'd know how to get inside the Chamber of Secrets, and that's a start. But McGonagall said we've got to stay in our tower, unless we're in class." "I think," said Harry, more quietly still, "it's time to get my dad's old cloak out again." Oh, Harry had inherited just one thing from his father, and money in the bank. That's what I wrote. I put the money part, because I was like, not just one thing. You inherited a ton of money from your father. Harry had inherited just one thing from his father, a long and silvery invisibility cloak. It was their only chance of sneaking out of the school to visit Hagrid without anyone knowing about it. They went to bed at the usual time, waited until Neville, Dean, and Seamus had stopped discussing the Chamber of Secrets, and finally fallen asleep, then got up, dressed again, and threw the cloak over themselves. The journey through the dark and deserted castle corridors wasn't enjoyable. Harry, who had wandered the castle at night several times before, had never seen it so crowded after sunset. Teachers, prefects, and ghosts were marching the corridors in pairs, staring around for any unusual activity. Their invisibility cloak didn't stop them making any noise, and there was a particular tense moment when Ron stubbed his toe only yards from the spot where Snape stood standing guard. Thankfully, Snape sneezed at almost exactly the moment Ron swore. It was with relief that they reached the oak front doors and eased them open. It was a clear, starry night. They hurried toward the lit windows of Hagrid's house and pulled off the cloak only when they were right outside his front door. When do they sleep? If they're just patrolling during the night. Seconds after they had knocked, Hagrid flung it open. They found themselves face to face with him aiming a crossbow at them. Fang the boarhound barked loudly behind him. "Oh," he said, lowering the weapon and staring at them. "What are you two doing here?" "What's that for?" said Harry, pointing at the crossbow as they stepped inside. Nothing, Hagrid muttered. "I've been expecting... Doesn't matter. Sit down. I'll make tea." He hardly seemed to know what he was doing. He nearly extinguished the fire, spilling water from the kettle on it, and then smashed the teapot with a nervous jerk of his massive hand. "Are you okay, Hagrid?" said Harry. "Did you hear about Hermione?" "Oh, I heard all right," said Hagrid, a slight break in his voice. He kept glancing nervously at the windows. He poured them both large mugs of boiling water. He had forgotten to add tea bags. It was just putting a slab of fruitcake on a plate when there was a loud knock on the door. Hagrid dropped the fruitcake. Harry and Ron exchanged panic-stricken looks. Then they threw the invisibility cloak back over themselves and retreated into a corner. Hagrid checked that they were hidden, seized his crossbow, and flung open his door once more. "Good evening, Hagrid." It was Dumbledore. He entered, looking deadly serious, and was followed by a second, very odd-looking man. The stranger had rumpled gray hair and an anxious expression, and was wearing a strange mixture of clothes, a pinstriped suit, a scarlet tie, a long black cloak, and pointed purple boots. Under his arm he carried a lime-green bowler. "That's Dad's boss," Ron breathed. "Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic." Harry elbowed Ron hard to make him shut up. Hagrid had gone pale and sweaty. He dropped into one of his chairs and looked from Dumbledore to Cornelius Fudge. "Bad business, Hagrid," said Fudge in rather clipped tones. "Very bad business. Had to come. 4 attacks on Muggleborns. Things have gone far enough. Ministry's got to act." "I never," said Hagrid, looking imploringly at Dumbledore. "You know I never, Professor Dumbledore, sir." "I want it understood, Cornelius, that Hagrid has my full confidence," said Dumbledore, frowning at Fudge. "Look, Albus," said Fudge uncomfortably, "Hagrid's record's against him. Ministry's got to do something. The school governors have been in touch. Yet again, Cornelius, I tell you that taking Hagrid away will not help in the slightest," said Dumbledore. His blue eyes were full of a fire Harry had never seen before. "Look at it from my point of view," said Fudge, fidgeting with his bowler. "I'm under a lot of pressure. Got to be seen to be doing something. If it turns out it wasn't Hagrid, he'll be back and no more said. But I've got to take him. Got to. Wouldn't be doing my duty. Take me," said Hagrid, who was trembling. "Take me where?" "For a short stretch only," said Fudge, not meeting Hagrid's eyes. "Not a punishment, Hagrid, more a precaution. If someone else is caught, you'll be let out with a full apology." "Not Azkaban," croaked Hagrid. Before Fudge could answer, there was another loud rap on the door. Dumbledore answered it. It was Harry's turn for an elbow in the ribs. He let out an audible gasp. Mr. Lucius Malfoy strode into Hagrid's hut, swathed in a long black traveling cloak, smiling a cold and satisfied smile. Fang started to growl. "Already here, Fudge," he said approvingly. "Good, good." "What are you doing here?" said Hagrid furiously. "Get out of my house!" "My dear man, please believe me. I have no pleasure at all being inside your... do you call this a house?" said Lucius Malfoy, sneering as he looked around the small cabin. I simply called at the school and was told that the headmaster was here. And what exactly did you want with me, Lucius? Said Dumbledore. He spoke politely, but the fire was still blazing in his blue eyes. Dreadful thing, Dumbledore, said Malfoy lazily, taking out a long roll of parchment. But the governors feel it's time for you to step aside. This is an order of suspension. You'll find all 12 signatures on it. I'm afraid we feel you're losing your touch. How many attacks have there been now? 2 more this afternoon, wasn't it? At this rate, there'll be no Muggleborns left at Hogwarts, and we all know what an awful lot that would be to the school. Oh, now see here, Lucius, said Fudge, looking alarmed. Dumbledore suspended? No, last thing we want just now. The appointment, or suspension, of the headmaster is a matter for the governors, Fudge, said Mr. Malfoy smoothly, and as Dumbledore has failed to stop these attacks... See here, Malfoy, if Dumbledore can't stop them, said Fudge, whose upper lip was sweating now, I mean to say, who can? That remains to be seen, said Mr. Malfoy with a nasty smile, but as all 12 of us have voted... Hagrid leapt to his feet, his shaggy black head grazing the ceiling. And how many did you have to threaten and blackmail before they agreed, Malfoy, eh? He roared. Dear, you know that temper of yours will lead you into trouble one of these days, Hagrid, said Mr. Malfoy. I would advise you not to shout at the Azkaban guards like that. They won't like it at all. You can't take Dumbledore, yelled Hagrid, making Fang the boarhound cower and whimper in his basket. Take him away and the Muggleborns won't stand a chance. They'll be killing next. Calm yourself, Hagrid, said Dumbledore sharply. He looked at Lucius Malfoy. If the governors want my removal, Lucius, I shall, of course, step aside. But, stuttered Fudge. No, growled Hagrid. Dumbledore had not taken his bright blue eyes off Lucius Malfoy's cold grey ones. However, said Dumbledore, speaking very slowly and clearly, so that none of them could miss a word, you will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You will always find that help will always be given. You will also find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. For a second, Harry was almost sure Dumbledore's eyes flickered toward the corner where he and Ron stood hidden. Admirable sentiments, said Malfoy, bowing. We shall all miss your, highly individual way of running things, Albus, and only hope that your successor will manage to prevent any, killings. He strode to the cabin door, opened it, and bowed Dumbledore out. Fudge, fiddling with his bowler, waited for Hagrid to go ahead of him, but Hagrid stood his ground, took a deep breath, and said carefully, If anyone wanted to find out some stuff, all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders. That'll lead 'em right. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Fudge stared at him in amazement. All right, I'm coming, said Hagrid, pulling on his moleskin overcoat. But as he was about to follow Fudge through the door, he stopped again and said loudly, If someone need to feed Fang while I'm away. The door banged shut, and Ron pulled off the invisibility cloak. We're in trouble now, he said hoarsely. No Dumbledore. They might as well close the school tonight. There'll be an attack a day with him gone. Fang started howling, scratching at the closed door. And that is the end of chapter 14. And we will read chapters 15 and 16 next week. 15 is Aragog. And 16 is the Chamber of Secrets. Very exciting. We're almost done. 2 more Storytime Saturdays. Or readings. Until we're finished, and then we can start Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm so excited. Yay. Okay. But that will do it. That is it. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are not already subscribed and you would like more of my content, please click the subscribe button. And click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload and when I stream. And please click the like button at the bottom under the screen, please. That helps, tells YouTube that you like it, and it's more likely to share my stuff with other people the more likes it gets. So please, please, please click the like button, even if you're watching this and it's not live anymore. And follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Yeah, I think that's it. I will see you again next week, Friday, 7 p.m. for Lego Harry Potter. So, yeah, I hope you have a magical evening. Bye-bye.